Emotion-filled drama today at the KCTV5 murder trial. Her father reached his breaking point during testimony today. Joining us now to try to bring some legal perspective to all of this is Matt O'Connor with the O'Connor Law Firm. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
I think I'm, like many of our viewers, just hooked on HLN at this point, or Court TV, or wherever we can find this. It is riveting, and it got sure a lot more emotional today as they brought up this father's suicide attempt.
Absolutely. I think that was, the defense tried to show through the suicide note that maybe that they could sort of make it seem like he had some feelings of guilt. But
something to hide.
Yeah, but it's backfired. I don't really think they wanted to get into the contents of the note, and then the prosecutor brought that up.
But that's the risk when you introduce it, right?
It's called opening the door. You kind of dance along the edge, and if you're not careful, you let the other side bring in evidence that may not have been admissible before, and that's what happened. And the note didn't really say anything compelling. It didn't say, you know, I did it or I had any other information about it. So that one was sort of a wash.
Yeah. How about that chloroform revelation about searching for that word online?
Well, I think it's very important for the defense. It's kind of like in tennis. You want to maintain serve, so to speak. And now that the defense is on, they have to make sure they're knocking down all of the state's sort of points. And one of the points that the state tried to make was that KCeyAnthony had been searching for chloroform on the computer. But in actuality, today her mother, Cindy, testified that she was the one who'd been doing all of those searches. So that backfired for the prosecution. They've got a tough case, and to have pieces of their case start to erode is very problematic for them.
Right. Okay, so we're in day 31 as of today. How much longer does this go on? What kind of timetable is it looking like to you?
Well, the judge had initially said that the case would last 6 to 8 weeks, and he expected it to end in July. So I would expect at least another couple of weeks.
You think they're about on target?
Yeah, you've got the defense has to finish up their witnesses, and then the state has the right to call what are called rebuttal witnesses against sort of their serve.
Will KCeyAnthony be a part of that, do you think, in any way? Do you think she'll take the stand?
I don't think so.
You don't?
If it were me, I would not put her on the stand because, frankly, she has too many negatives she's going to have to overcome. And, and right now, there's so many unanswered questions. If you put her on the stand, that may answer some of the questions, and I don't think you want to do that. Plus, she seems like she may not be as stable as you would like a client to be, especially given the fact that they alluded to the fact that she may be incompetent. So
right. But they declared she was competent to be there. So what are you, as an attorney, waiting to see? I mean, what are you kind of wanting to see?
Well, I'm trying to figure out from watching all of this how they're going to tie it together in closing argument, because really what both sides do in opening statements, they sort of give a tease as to what to expect.
Okay.
In closing argument, they tie it all together. You know, like the prosecutor will say, here's the timeline of events. They need to present a clear and cogent theory of the case. I expect that the prosecutor will probably argue that it's a timeline sort of prosecution.
Because there's no, like, smoking gun here, right?
There really isn't. There's no DNA, there's no fingerprints, nothing. I mean, and even the science of, you know, what was in the trunk, what wasn't in the trunk is problematic, and that may, if she's convicted, cause the case to be reversed on appeal. The defense also has to do the same thing in closing argument and tie it up, because right now, typically, they're sort of shooting in several different directions and trying to knock holes in things. I think the prosecutor's side would say that's what defense attorneys do. They just try to use smoke and mirrors and muddy the water. But I would expect that the defense would probably tie this together and say, here's what happened, here's the timeline. And so on one hand, you have the prosecutor who's saying, yeah, we really don't have any specific evidence, but it's clear she was the one who had access, she acted inappropriately, didn't report it. And then on the other side, the defense is going to volley back, listen, this was a drowning, her father was an overbearing person, and she didn't report it because of that reason. So
yeah, interesting. And you know what I just keep thinking of as I watch it? What are these jurors thinking? My gosh, to be sequestered like they are, to be inundated with all this madness between the two sides, I just can't imagine being on that jury pool.
Sometimes they're thinking things like, what's for lunch?
I would think.
And why does that attorney wear that particular suit?
I would think.
The longer
this seems maddening.
Oh yeah, and the longer they're there, the more they become comfortable with the surroundings and the less they pay attention. And one thing that's surprising for me, as a trial attorney, you always have to be aware of tempo. And the tempo in this case, and a lot of other publicized cases, seems to be a little bit slower. I would, in a long case like this, I mean, you want to keep people's attention, keep things rolling.
I would think.
Keep it interesting. Otherwise, you're going to have people thinking about what's for lunch.
And when am I going to get out of here?
Exactly.
Boy, oh boy, Matt O'Connor. Okay, we'll talk again here in a few weeks if this indeed wraps up. See what happens. Appreciate your insight.